Got him in group as a go.
Yes! Not just a startup, an upstart.
Gotta get going.
Gotta be good.
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 Growth is the goal. How do we do that?
I talked to UPS. They'll help us out. New technology, smart advice. We focus on the business, and they take care of the logistics.
UPS.
Good going.
We get good. That's great.
Great. Great.
Great.
Great.
Great.
Great.
Great.
Great.
Great.
I love logistics.
Yeah, I mean we are anxious to play Marshall and see where we stand against a very good football team. We had a week off. The Penn State kind of game has passed us down. We saw it and we looked at it and we corrected it and grew from it, and we're ready to prepare for. We're ready to head toward Marshall. It's like so. We're halfway there because we had a week off, so we're into our game plan much more than just first impressions in my mind with Marshall. But it's a great challenge for us. We hit Marshall when they are really in stride. Their quarterback is one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Their offense, their football team is playing they're at the peak of their game, I think, unless there's another peak to get to. They are at least they've won 9 of their last 10 ball games, going back to the 51-49 loss to Middle Tennessee last year. They've scored 40 or more points all but one of those games. And this year, of course, 3-0. And they kept coming off just a manhandling of Ohio University last week. One of the teams in our conference, you know, in our division of our conference. So, but we're excited about playing this team, and it's exciting that I know they're the preseason favorite in their conference, and I'm not sure we're quite the favorite in ours, but we're no longer at the bottom of the list. So, it should be a great challenge for us. Our defense has been playing very well. They're going to be challenged by a team that runs the ball well and throws it very well, and offensively, we're going to be challenged to be more productive. I don't think if we don't score in the 30s, I'm just picking a number. I don't think if your numbers don't get up fairly good, you don't. Even if you hold them down, you're not in that ball game. So we've got a real challenge for us too, because they haven't given up a lot of points this year either, as well. So it should be a great challenge, and we are excited. We've practiced hard. Practice very, very well, and excited about the game.
Is this style of play, talking about Marshall or the kind of team, is that what you see Akron evolving into? Is that kind of how?
Well, style of play. I think. I mean, I guess I'm more interested in how they play. They're preseason favorites in their conference. 3 or 4 years ago, they fired their coach. They hired Doc, who I played with at West Virginia. He was 1 year ahead of me. I've known him all my life, and he went through the building process, and he's got a team that's the premier team of their conference right now, with a premier quarterback and premier offense. Yes, whether we run the ball better or throw it better, that's what you envision. I think if you're talking about, I envision us competing for our conference championship and being a team that is picked to be where we are. That's where I envision. Yeah, that's what I would think. That's where I think, without a doubt, we want to be. Well, yeah, they run the ball very. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody in their right mind would not want to run and pass it like they do. They're not a passing team. They're a running and passing team. They rushed for 257 yards against Ohio University. So when you're talking about, do I envision us being like them? Exactly. I hope they run it and throw it very, very well. And one complements the other, and so and their defense, like I say, hasn't given up a lot of points either. Sometimes when you do have a great quarterback like they do, and he's prolific, the defense gets overlooked. But they gave up, I want to say 7 against Rhode Island and 14 against Ohio University, and then Miami got like 28 or something. But they were down 28-3 before they got their points. So defense is playing well too. So. In a lot of ways, yes, I do. Even the way they built their team, you look at we have a little different situation. They, having been raised in West Virginia, there's not a lot of population. They have to They have to go entirely out of the area to get recruits. I mean, as far as numbers of population, we've got South Florida in mind. Just like Doc and Chuck and those guys have been. They all recruited the same area for the last 25 years. from Miami-Dade, Broward, West Palm Beach County, and but we have a great area here that we don't want to be too. We want to make sure we do a good job where we are first.
When you see offensive numbers that gaudy, what's your initial impression? First thing that comes to mind?
Well, they must be doing something right. They must be doing something right. I mean, my first impression, I'd like to see what they're doing. They're doing something right, and they are. They're throwing and catching the football, and very, very well, and complementing that with running plays that seem to always go between 5 and 15 yards. But I think when you see a team that's scoring that many numbers, you're saying they're doing something very well, and you look at them. I study defenses because that's what I work with, but I've made sure I watch a lot of their offense as well, just to see what it is they're doing. They got a quarterback that's really a difference maker. He's a difference maker. And I saw a great highlight on game day. I saw a great special on him, and I'm thinking, boy, he's the kind of guy you'd like for him to go 11-1 this year. But the one loss you'd like to be against us. But it's a great story of a hungry kid who's done a great job of pulling himself out of Liberty City and to where he is now.
Can you put your finger on what makes Fredo a difference maker?
He just got he's a other than not being, I guess, an NFL size guy, he's the total package. He can throw the deep ball. He's accurate. He scrambles well. He's hard to bring down. He's very relaxed in the pocket. What's that?
NFL size guy.
Well, you can't really. You're right. You can't say that. I was thinking he's not 210 pounds. Usually, if they're 6 foot, they're 200. You think of Manziel, he may be small, some short. This kid's not a big kid. He's not a real big kid, I don't think. At 185, what does they list him at?
76.
Yeah, 76. That's a little bit lower than even the NFL goes when they go that way. But I'm just saying he is a special kid, and his college quarterbacks don't have to meet any kind of special NFL criteria, and nor should they. But he's something special, and he's been going. I think he started as a redshirt freshman or as a freshman. One of those two things. He's been starting for 4 years.
When you looked at the Penn State tape and critiqued it, did you take a lot out of it on the positive side? Yeah, there was some
Right.
first possession I'd like to have back, but did you see movement both on offense and defense?
Yeah,
from Penn?
We did. We try to take as much pause as we can out of a game like that, and we did defensively. Again, we other than a couple of plays where they beat us underneath, not so much over top and deep. They hit a couple of plays and scored offensively. We were able to move it between the 20s fairly well, and we controlled the clock first half of the ball game. We just couldn't get the ball into the red zone and score points. And so, but as you look at the things we do well, we did well. You can gain from it, because the game was basically it was 7-3. They're facing a 3rd and 22. They're going to punt the ball. We're going to have at least we're going to get into the fourth quarter most likely at 7-3, and then all of a sudden. The chemistry of the game comes out of the game. Now it becomes an interesting game from a psychological standpoint, but they hit a 3rd and 22, they hit a 3rd and 8, and they hit a 3rd and 6 all in that drive, and they scored, and that was a big 14-3 that they got to. But we did glean a lot of positives from that. The way our kids played, how hard they played, and how ready they were to play.
One more quick question on Marshall. How rare is it to see a team not have they don't have an SEC opponent, they don't have a Big Ten opponent, they don't have a Big 12 opponent?
Very, again, I don't know how. Everybody budgets differently, and everybody does that, but they it may not just happen to get one on their schedule. I think they usually line up against somebody like that. I imagine some. It is usually pretty rare because we're labeled mid-majors, or that's how we get labeled, and part of that label refers to the fact that we play a big game on the road and make a little money. We generally have to do that. We can't get those teams to play us at home. That's the thing. You play somebody that pays you a lot that really is not going to come back to your place. Marshall's, again, you'd have to ask their AD. Sometimes the scheduling, you just can't find one. And also, the better you get, the less likely somebody that has a 100,000 seat stadium wants to put you in their stadium.
West Virginia, Virginia,
Well, West Virginia played them every year, but that's a big political deal that was going on in West Virginia, and West Virginians really didn't want to play that game. It doesn't do them no good to play that game, and so I think they discontinued it. But Virginia Tech, there's no, like I say, I can't tell you what goes on there. Most likely I would say, because of the difficulty of scheduling way ahead, it didn't work out. On the other hand, if they've got their budget so sound that they don't have to, that's not a bad way to go either. Then you don't have, that's one more game with people that you're going to be on a level playing field with. You line up with Oklahoma or those type teams, and you're lining up as a prohibitive favorite.
That's also from the Penn State game. 3 more turnovers,
Yeah.
but they had to be disappointing. You only could turn 1 of those.
Right, did not turn those into points. Now we kept, in a lot of ways, we turned them into points by not letting them score because they were moving down close to the goal line. On one, they were at midfield. On the other, on a fumble. So yeah, that you always want to score, but they were score preventing turnovers anyway. But you're right. I'm saying, gosh, we got 3 turnovers, we gave up none. If we could have just converted one of those to a score, if one could have been in the +5 or +10, as opposed to the -1 yard line, which we had a nice drive coming out after that and got the ball back about to midfield before we punted on that turnover. But when you win turnover margin, you'd like to think with your at-bats. In a game like Penn State, usually it's putting you in a position to win the game. It's not necessarily putting you in a rout situation, but you win the turnover battle in a game like that. You're putting yourself in position to win, and that's about as far as we got.
I forgot to ask you, because there was so much to think about that game. After the last turnover, you faced that 4th down. What was the mindset? Because was it more than a yard? Was it less?
It's less than a yard. It was less than a yard, okay. And we have short yardage plays that we have practiced and prepped for that.
Off the pistol?
Well, we almost always go off the pistol. And if you watch Saturday, of course, I've been coaching when there was no pistol. So I know all the pluses and minuses, and I guarantee you, just like any second guesser, I think I watched every game Saturday. Say, okay, who's running short yards out of the pistol and who's not, and it's about 50-50. So can you? If so, it's 6-1, half a dozen the other. But what we did, we missed an assignment and allowed the guy come free in the backfield, whether we had been under center or not. We would have been hit 2 yards deep in that circumstance unless we had to run a quarterback sneak. And the problem with that, like I say, we knew going in the one area where we felt they were the strongest advantage was in interior short yardage situations. So, now you don't have a 4th and 2 where you can line up and spread them out and say, oh, well, you feel like it's 4th and less than 1, you need to line up and if we make the blocks, we have a chance to do that. But all we can do is move forward. Central Florida missed a couple of, had opportunities on the goal line to do the same thing against them and couldn't do it.
Have you made a decision for the coaches?
Uh-huh.
On the place kicking, or will it be a game?
It'll be I think we're going to go with Rob Stein. Yeah, Robert. He won he got in the game. He made the kick, and we told Robert coming in, Robert, because of where we've been the last couple of years, we're going to sign a kicker. And we're probably, to get the one we want, if things are even in the preseason, we're probably going to tell him he's got the opportunity. That's how you get him. Now, if it's clearly different during the preseason, we won't. But if it's even, we're going to try. We're going to let him go unless he shows. But don't give up on yourself. Keep on pumping, because we're not keyed into that. And he did exactly that. He stayed in the game. He did his job. He got a chance to make a kick, and he made that kick. Now, from that point forward, he can be number 1, the other, and Tom can be number 2 until such time.
Is there any disadvantage to having your bye week so early in the season?
No. I generally would like a bye week later in the season when we're beat up or tired, and you're really getting people well. We do have before our Tuesday night game, we've got that longer week, before 4 straight weeks. So there is a kind of a half bye week later in the season. But it was a unique way to start. We had a 9-day separation between Central Howard and Penn State, and a week off. Like I said earlier in the week, or in my press conference or my phone conference yesterday, it's hard not to find a positive about a week off. Unless you're scoring 40 points a game and you've just done it 7 times in a row and you're Marshall, I imagine they really don't want a week off, and nor would I, the way they've been playing. But for us to have a couple more days, whether it helps you or not, they say that football is a game of repetition, that you run plays over and over again, or you give people, the other teams, look over and over again, and that's how you prepare each week. If we have 2 or 3 extra days to do the exact thing you usually have 2 or 3 only, it should be a better situation. So that that's the way I play it. Early in the season, you're not trying to get people well as much as you're trying to get a few extra days of practice in. Later in the season, you may not hardly go in helmets only the entire week in preparation. We got pretty good practice last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
I think it was right before the game that you found out that Tommy Brown could play.
Uh-huh.
So he did get in some in that game, right?
Yeah, he played a good bit. I think he played a good bit. He's now, that's over. That's pretty much once the waiver was granted. That's done. So he's able to play.
Right.
Well, I don't even know where he's been posted on the depth chart. John would probably put him. We may have put him. You know how that is. He's been backup tackle and guard. He's been back. Yeah. And I don't know that I can tell you whether he's been given a starting nod or a backup nod right now. But you'll know it on the first play, I guess.
And I guess that would be tough for him, not knowing.
What's that?
Tommy, and he's been
not know whether he was going to play or not.
Yeah.
Everywhere. That's tough. That's what happened the first week. We didn't know. We felt there was a quality fact situation that once all the material and information was in, that we felt that's the way the decision would be rendered. But you have to accumulate paperwork, and that's what it happens. They meet once or twice a week every week, and this happens in the NCAA. They can only meet, and that's how they met. And so I'm sure he was on needles and pins, so to speak. But that's passed. I see him being where we most need him. He's probably more of a tackle for. I mean, our needs were at tackle, but I think right now he's also can play guard, the guard position. But because we had 2 new tackles, we said, well, here's a guy with some experience. It'll give us some competition at those. But we also he's played guard as well too, you know. But and if y'all can think about it, the 4-3 as opposed to a 3-4, your guards are covered by big people, and so then the 4-3 look, your guards need to be a little bit bigger and a little bit different scheme wise than the old days when it was a 3-4 defense and both guards were uncovered and we're just picking up linebackers and helping out on somebody to the inside or outside. So in most of the 4-3 looks that we play, Tommy could be as effective as a guard as he would a tackle. We just had more need at tackle coming into the season, and we saw that as his immediate need for us.
Coach, talking in conference, you know, got another win over a Big Ten team, Bowling Green.
Uh-huh.
In your opinion, once you get past that top tier of the Big Ten, the Ohio States, Michigan State, maybe Wisconsin, is the gap closing between the MAC and the Big Ten?
You're asking me to make a quote that I'm thinking that sounds like one that would be in the paper somewhere else besides here, that if I made that accusation. Let me say this, in every conference in America, when you're comparing what they call the mid-major or whatever, the top half will be comparable to the bottom half. I'm not sure it'll be comparable to the top half, but in any major conference, whether you saw Vanderbilt get almost beat by UMass, you saw Indiana lose to Bowling Green, and Northern Illinois, I think, has already got one. Purdue won to Central Michigan. All I'm saying is I think that would be a fairly good statement to say is that if you're not up in the top half of those 5 major conferences, you're going to be competing pretty closely with the top half of those conferences that are right there pushing. Not very politically correct.
Back to again, you to clarify, so Doc Holliday was at West Virginia.
He came a year after me. And I was a sophomore and he was a freshman, and my dad signed him, a defensive end, and of course I was a walk-on. He was a scholarship player and played and of course, my dad left the next year, and he played for we played for another coach. But he started several years. Tough guy. And we were fishing, but we were trout fishermen together. We went all over the state going trout fishing. He's from Hurricane, West Virginia, and which is not far from Marshall. But he'd always been good friends, and he was on Chuck Amata's staff until Urban Meyer hired him away at Florida. And but Doc's done a great job.
And would you say that, I mean, looking at their roster, you know, even obviously more Florida guys than you have.
Well, he has to. There's only
Would you say you compete against them in South Florida?
Yeah, I would think we would go head to head with Marshall a good bit down there in the areas that we have strengths in, you know. Yeah, and other teams, but Marshall would be right in that category because Doc was, whether he was at West Virginia for 20 years, he was with Don Nalen. He recruited Miami. When he was at NC State, he recruited Miami. When he was Urban Meyer, he recruited Miami. So that's what. And Doc goes to Marshall with about 1 million population in West Virginia, and where you have to now go out of state. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to where your strengths are. And he's now. I think they've got some Ohio, and they've got smidgens of people right around this area. But whether you're Morgantown, West Virginia University, or Marshall, you don't have enough population, and many of the population don't have even high school football. You know, you get the mountains of West Virginia, you got counties with one school that play football, and so that's. I mean, most everybody that's recruited Miami knows that they're going to bump into Doc down there over the years, and he still has does a great job in South Florida.
What's the best fishing story?
But we trout fish. My best fishing trout. We would go trout fishing in Pendleton County, the North Fork of the South Branch of the Potomac, and we went with me and him and a couple other ball players. It was so cold that it was snow, and we would go and we would backpack 4 or 5 miles up in the mountains to catch native brook trout. We were always looking for native brook trout, and of course the guides of your rod would freeze up. So it was so cold they would, as soon as the line came up it would freeze up. And I remember slipping in and falling. We were in whip waders going across a fast-moving string and having to undress naked in the middle of the snow just to try to get warm enough to even survive, I think. So there I was naked in the middle of the woods with a bunch of guys on a fishing trip. But believe it or not, if you ever trout fished in the mountains during the winter and you fall in, you better get dry pretty quick because we were way back up. I was the coldest I've ever been. But and we poached across the line in Pennsylvania. We were only about 10 miles from Pennsylvania, and we knew of a trout stream right across the line. And I know we illegally jumped across the line several times to go up there and trout fish. Yeah, oh yeah, we knew this native brook trout. We had special streams where you find native brook trout, and we'd go the extra mile to get that.
Considering dramatic license is always taken in movies, I'm just curious, how much help did your father give to the Marshall program years ago?
I'll give you all some inside information that the movie never brought about. If you saw the movie, the coach that was not on the plane was named Red Dawson. He was the coach at Marshall. Red Dawson had become a coach at Marshall. That was his first coaching job. He was formerly a wide receiver, tight end, kind of a wide receiver, tight end at Florida State. The wide receiver quarterback coach at Florida State was my dad. So in the early '60s, Fred Blitnikoff, Red Dawson, they were all receivers at Florida State. My dad gets the West Virginia job as a coordinator. Red Dawson goes to Marshall as an assistant coach. So when that tragedy occurred, Red Dawson appealed to his good friend and former coach Bobby Bowden for the head coach that we'd like to look at that. They never played each other. They weren't competent. In the movie, it looked like they were competition, and that was some kind of gesture that we gave information to our competition. It wasn't. Marshall and West Virginia did not play each other, you know. But so I didn't want to diminish the fact that everything was true. I mean, we wear crosses on our helmets. I was there. I wasn't on the team. I was there. I was 69 or 70. But there was a special relationship that Red Dawson came up made the call to come up, and that was a former player. I believe my dad would have done it regardless. But there was a natural relationship between Red Dawson and my dad, and so when he called, it was just easy for them to come on up and get video of. My dad ran what they call the Houston Veer. My dad went down to Houston in '67 or '68. A guy named Bill Yeoman was running the split back veer. He was doing it better than anybody in the country. So Dad went down, and my dad ran the option for years. He didn't run the passing. He was a split back veer coach. That's who Warren McVay was. And so if you watch the movie, Marshall came in and put in the split back veer. Dad had all the video, had all the cut ups, and so they came in and put in the split back veer, which is considered like the spread offense today, something where a less talented team could outmaneuver people that were bigger than those days. The option was a way that smaller teams could catch up to people that were bigger, and so that was the relation. Interesting to carry it further. In 1985, I interviewed for the head job at Marshall. And I spent the night and stayed with Red Dawson. He was retired, was in that area. Jerry Faust interviewed right before me, and he turned the job down. I interviewed, and they told me I was about 28 years old. They told me I was too young, and Jerry I'd never met Jerry, and he hired me here from that somewhere along the line. He talked to somebody that at that point that knew me, I guess. But that was kind of a interesting follow-up to that, the Marshall situation.
Coach, looking at your backfield, Hakeem Lawrence, when he touched the ball against Penn State, did some good things. Is he likely this
we're trying to get him in a position to see if he can do it. We've said many times that we're always looking for somebody that can, as they say, go yard. They can go the distance. They can take a one play and take it the distance. And we haven't had enough of that. And we felt like he needs to have we need to get an opportunity for him to do that. And so there's a good chance he'll get an opportunity to do that, in the game Saturday. But he's worked hard. We played as a true freshman and redshirted his second year here. So he's coming off a redshirt year where he got toughened up in the scout team, and he's just probably the fastest guy. Him and Bryce Cheek are the two fastest guys on our team, and he's very, very, very fast. And so hopefully we'll be able to see if he can spring something down there.